I'm Alex Nichols. Tomorrow, fingers crossed, I'll be making it to the top of Pikes Peak for the 40th month in a row where I've done it at least one time each month. All right, so it started in 2017. That year, I had run Western States 100, and placed second there, and then later in the year I realized that it had been almost an entire year and I hadn't done Pikes Peak a single time. I hadn't made it to the summit in all of 2017, and it was like October. So I just thought to myself that that's not right. So went up with Brandon Stepanowicz, and we did that first month and decided that it would be a fun project over the winter just to stay motivated and like do something different that wasn't necessarily racing all the time. So that's kind of how it started, and then just kept trying to do it every month. So, compared to the marathon, it is much slower. And it's just a whole different attitude, I guess. It is very challenging sometimes. Getting to the top and back can be really, really difficult, like just as hard as running the Pikes Peak Marathon. But it also allows you some flexibility where you can enjoy the day a little bit more, like do it with friends. Just every time you do it is a little bit different, and that's kind of the nice thing about doing it so many times, is that it changes each time you do it. So, the number one thing is checking the forecast. The cool thing about Pikes Peak is that since it's on the Front Range, you can time the weather pretty well so that it's not too intense. But there have been some really tough ones, and it's just really, the night before is a long process of getting the right gear that's going to be warm enough, but not carrying too much stuff and really weighing you down, because I don't want to be out there for 10 hours or something. So I still try to go as light as possible without frostbite and toe problems. That's the biggest thing. The toes get really cold with all the post holing. Yeah, so the memorable ones, I think when I first started, it was memorable to be up there in like extreme conditions. It gets super windy at the top, especially in the winter. But having done so many at this point, I think the most memorable ones have been with people. Some of the runners that I coach at college have gone up with me, and that's their first time going up to 14,000 feet ever. And then this last October, I got to do it with 6 graduates of Colorado College that I coached, and they had never done it before in all their time at school. And so we got to go do it as a group. So that was probably one of my highlights. Yeah, no, there have been quite a few times that it's come down to the final like half mile to a mile and deciding whether or not it's worth it to try to keep going, whether it's safe enough. Just a few months ago, even though it was the fall, I did November with Brandon, and the weather at the top was way worse than what we had expected, and we just barely had enough clothing on. It was kind of one of those things where we had to push as hard as possible, not to get to the top, but just to stay warm. Yeah, so I tend to look pretty far in advance, which weekends would make sense with races, and then also with my work schedule. So I can normally squeeze it out, but there have been some close calls. Like one December, I had to wake up at like 3 in the morning and try to do it before work on the last day of December or something like that. So I finish it within the monthly calendar, but there have been some close calls where it's not necessarily 30 days since the last time I did it. Yeah, I think it's about probably 50-50 whether or not I'm by myself or with people. And yeah, it just depends on who's available, what the schedule is like, and yeah. So I didn't start doing Pikes Peak as a training thing in any way. It was more of just something I wanted to do, but then I realized over time that it really held me accountable to be at a certain level of fitness at all times. So I could never like totally take a ton of time off and get out of shape. So I always knew that I would need to get up Pikes Peak in the next 30 days or so, and I had to be ready for that. So in the end, the last 3.5 years have been super consistent because I've kept that in mind. You know, if for whatever reason I wasn't able to do it in a month, I'd probably be okay with that. It's more of just enjoying it, and having it on my schedule is something to look forward to and take advantage of having such a cool mountain in our backyard. So that's probably what it's all about, is more of keeping myself accountable to get out and do exciting things even when I'm not totally feeling it. Yeah, so this year is probably just going to be like a redo of 2020 since I didn't get to do the main races. So Western States 100 again in June, end of June, and then the Run Rabbit Run 100 in September. So unfortunately that's a little close to Pikes Peak Marathon, so I probably will skip the marathon. Maybe do the ascent if I feel like it. I think it's going to be a really hard day. We had a lot of snow recently and the forecast looks really cold, so I hope everyone is prepared for that. So yeah, kind of going into it like any winter up and down, where you just have to stay focused on paying attention to how cold you are. Eating is hard when it's cold, but you have to keep eating, and yeah, hopefully it goes well.